Guided Financial reports that 55% of American entrepreneurs say the biggest motivation for starting their own business is being their own boss. Meanwhile, Babson chimes in to tell us that 62% of American adults believe that entrepreneurship is a good career. Over the last 25 years, serial entrepreneur Stephen Halasnik has built a total of 6 companies ranging in revenue from $5 to $25 million. And one of the keys to his business success, which he shares with other entrepreneurs in the space, is building a financial runway. He joined me this week to discuss his love of adventure, how he's been successful in business, the positive example he wants to leave for his 2 sons, and how others can follow in his footsteps to become serial and successful entrepreneurs. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Hey, Stephen, if you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to talk to you today about being a serial entrepreneur. Great to see you this morning, and thanks so very much for being here.
I'm glad to be here.
Stephen, I know that you have spent your entire adult life in entrepreneurship, and you've built businesses from $5 to $25 million. So I'm curious to begin our conversation by asking you about what do you think makes a successful serial entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, I think a successful serial entrepreneur, I mean, that can go in a couple of different directions. I mean, listen, sometimes when you build a business for the first time and it's successful, there could be luck that plays a part. And so if you go and meet someone who's done it a couple of times, and that means that you didn't really fall into luck. It was your skill set that kind of made it happen. So what makes a serial entrepreneur, what makes a successful entrepreneur is usually where someone's skill set is really matched up against the businesses they've chosen and they've been successful at it. A serial entrepreneur is usually someone successful who has the traits of making a successful business, and they just keep doing it again and again and again. So I think those are some of the key ingredients of a successful entrepreneur.
And tell me, why were you able to scale your businesses so successfully? I'm wondering about your own personal success in scaling businesses and building wealth for yourself.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the word successful is listen, I think the word successful for me, in my case, a successful serial entrepreneur, a successful entrepreneur is because for 25 years, I've been able to do what I dreamed of. And that was to own my own company and to not really have to answer to anybody, to not have to play politics. I started off my career for the first 8.5 years working for a huge company. I be honest with you, I loved it. I worked for a company called Xerox, which was the Google of its time. And I loved it, but I knew I couldn't play the politics game in corporate America. And I knew that since I was 17, I wanted to open up my own business, and I wouldn't have been happy if I hadn't at least tried that. So, I don't know if I've been a success from the standpoint of I've been able to live my dream. I I don't know if I think of myself as a successful entrepreneur because the biggest company I've built are, $25 million. And that in some circles, that's not considered to be a huge company, right? I've never gone public, nor was that my vision. I've never had, it's always been a lot of work and struggle. So to answer your question, I don't know if I mean I've been successful again because I've been able to live my dream.
Well, I always tell people when you have a chance to live your dream as your job, it's not work, right? You're just living out of
Yes.
passion, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And I love my work. I mean, I love what I do. I love what I do. I've been doing this for 25 years. A lot of people, when they get a little older, I'm 56, when they get into the 50s, they really question their lives. They question their work. There's a lot of things they question. I never do. I never did. I really love what I do. I have a lot of interest outside of work too, and that's great. But yeah, I still love what I do, and I plan to work till I'm 80s. So yeah.
tell me, what do you like doing outside the office since you brought it up?
Well, I'm very athletic. So within the last 3 years, I took up competitive rowing. So I'm rowing on a lake with a whole bunch of different people, and it's pretty intense. Like this morning, I was up at 4:45 a.m. and rowing, but I'm also a very accomplished competitive tennis player. And so for the past 15, well, ever since I was 35, so, 21 years, I was playing a very high level of competitive tennis. I also, I have a 12-year-old son who's involved in sports, and so I'm involved with him, and I also have a 21-year-old who's off at college. But I hike, I bike, I'm physically fit, and I like working in the yard too, planting flowers and those type of things. So I'm always busy. I'm also always seeing friends, and of course and then I'm married, so my wife and I are always doing things. So I think in fact, I just tweeted that today, or I think it was the other day, that I think it's these activities outside of work that has also given me the energy to always be focused and determined while I'm at work. So yeah, so that's what I do outside of work.
I got it. I think it's important for people to find their center outside of work because then it gives them the energy to maximize their potential at work, right?
It does. I think, listen, I think everybody's different. With the two of the businesses I have right now, I have a business partner, which is a fantastic, he's fantastic. But, his idea of, work, interest outside of work, it's not physical. It's more like working on cars, working on boats. It's different than mine. So I don't think you have to be, actively involved in sports or something that's health related to get the energy. But it does work for me. I find that my energy level is fantastic because I'm so active outside.
Absolutely. And Stephen, I'm wondering your thoughts and advice to young entrepreneurs who have just begun their journey.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple things that I would say. The first thing is you have to have a financial runway, and that is most people don't get it, that it takes 3 to 5 years for a business to actually start paying you money, to actually start paying you a salary. Now, this is again without angel funding, right? Which is, within the last, couple of years, 10 years, that's been a way some entrepreneurs, many have gone. But all of the business that I've started have not involved any type of outside investors. So I've built my businesses based on existing cash flow, which is like unheard of today. And it is a good way to go, because if you can keep 100% of your profits for yourself instead of giving it out to investors, well, then you're going to do a lot better. And listen, I know people who have $50 million companies where, they're barely making $150,000 a year on a $50 million company. Whereas if I was running a $50 million company, I'd be making anywhere between, $5 to $10 million a year. So, so the first thing is you got to have a financial runway. You got to have, how am I going to pay my bills at home and for the next 3 to 5 years? Now, it could be I have a significant other that I live with that makes money that's going to carry us. You could do what I did, and that is I worked half the day for my company, and then the other half I worked for my own company until it got rolling, and then I quit my other job. But you have to say, this is going to take 3 to 5 years. How am I going to survive that? The second thing is, don't jump at the very first idea that you come up with. Really, really refine your idea and really put pen and paper and say, hey, how is this going to work? In essence, you want to build a business plan. And, the other thing I would say is, don't believe everything that you think is going to happen, because you're really, if you can get somebody who runs a business and ask them to look at your business plan and poke holes at it. Go to them and say how will this not work? Because you're going to believe everything that you think is going to happen because you thought of it. So that's the second part. And the other thing is, don't listen to people who don't own a business. Everybody has this preconceived notion. Like Kevin, if I asked you right now, do you think running a business, owning your own business is risky? What would your answer be?
Yes.
Yep. And I would say no. And I would tell you why. And that is, the average person right now who's got a college education will have in their lifetime 18 different jobs. And so you're going to get laid off. You're going to get fired. Maybe not, fired and laid off, probably the same thing. But to me, is I'm in control of my own future. And the other part about this is, I don't make risky decisions in business. I make calculated decisions when I'm in business. So I am deciding what's the risk of doing this, and then what's the downside and what's the upside. And if there's too much downside and it's too risky, well, I'm going to try to find a way to make it less risky. So an example would be when I started my first company, I didn't just go with my idea and quit my job. I said, wait a minute, let me work full time. And then on the other half of the day, do my company and see if it works, see if I can generate cash flow. So, I think that number one is, not number one, but refine your idea. And then, not number two. And number two was, don't listen to non-business owners about running a business, because they really don't know. And then the last thing is, make the leap. Don't sit there and just say, oh, one of these days I want to start my business. One of these days, because let me tell you, as life goes on, more and more things pile on you. Kids, mortgages, car payments, medical bills, gets harder and harder and harder. Although I would tell you, in the last several years, it's gotten so much easier to be an entrepreneur than it ever was when I first started. There's just so many tools and capital that's out there right now.
And to that point, I'm going to follow up by asking you, how do you think the advancement of technology has helped entrepreneurs be successful?
Well, it's just the access to information allows you to, just to start off with, to really validate your idea, validate, what you're trying to do and who you're going to go after and the competition that's out there. But it's made it so much easier for you to really, really, build a great business plan, or really, market, research your market. So that's number one. Number two is like, I'll give you an example. The sixth company I built, with my business partner, we started it 5 years ago. It was in the funeral funding business. And it's not what you think of funeral funding. Funeral funding is where you buy life insurance policies of people who passed away, and they're for the family, so that they can get the money now instead of having to wait 60 days for the insurance company. So we advance them 93% of it, and then we collect directly from the insurance company. Well, just to give you an idea, when we started that business 5 years ago, because we had so much experience in building companies, we knew exactly the type of tools that we needed. We knew we needed an accounting package. We knew we needed a CRM system. We knew, we knew how to use Excel to create pricing models. We knew everything. And so within 3 months, we had the company up and very profitable. Whereas in the past, like 15, 20 years ago, that would have taken, 2 to 3 years. So all the tools that are out there right now, the software, the access to the information is just fantastic for the entrepreneur. Now, the bad side about that is, okay, I'm not just the only one who has that information. You, Kevin, also have that information. So, it makes the competition is much more fierce. It's really hard to start a company and get a long runway before people notice you, because now, it's just out there in the open of, the idea that you're going after. And it's very rare when you go after any type of business where there isn't a lot of competition in it already.
Absolutely. And Stephen, I wanted to also ask you, if you thought there was a correlation as an entrepreneur to exhibiting patience, showing discipline, but also being aggressively and smartly aggressive when running a business.
Yep. Well, yeah, I think it depends on your personality and your skill set, but I'm going to read something to you. I played baseball in high school and college. In fact, I played 4 sports in high school, and then I played baseball in college. And I had this saying in my locker since I was 16 years old, and I used to keep it in my my baseball locker. And I'll read it to you. It's by Calvin Coolidge, and it says, "Nothing in this world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent." So I would tell you that that in regards to, if you want to be successful, the most important thing is determination and ambition. And the thing with me is that I knew I was never the smartest guy in the room. I was never the most athletic guy in the room. I was never the best looking guy, in the room, but I was always the hardest worker, and I have total persistence. Just like a dog going after a bone, you just can't get it away, and that's been my trademark, is my persistence.
Yeah, Stephen, I'm also wondering, I was born with what's called spastic quadriplegia cerebral palsy.
Yep.
It simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. And I used to work in inclusive employment before I did this. And one of the things that I always told employers about the benefits of hiring people with disabilities is that they can help you run your business by providing you a different perspective. So I have a two-part question for you. The first part of it is, how important do you think it is for business owners to look at hiring people with disabilities? And secondly, how easy do you think it is for someone with a disability to start a business?
Well, I before we got on this interview, Kevin, I did look up and read about your condition just to kind of read a little bit more about it. It was interesting, and so just so you know, when I read the quote about persistence, I really felt that I thought that you would understand that because I think when it comes to, and everybody's got a disability, maybe not at the level that you have to deal with, unfortunately. Like I have dyslexia. Okay. So, and it took me a long time to kind of figure out how to work with it and even to identify it. And I'm not equating dyslexia with the condition that you or some other, disabled people might have, but you have to overcome things. And my experience was people with disabilities, they have that persistence and hard work ethic. They've had a lifelong experience of really trying to, make things happen. And so that to me is, you could take any trait in the book and any employer wants people to work hard. Like Woody Allen said, 90% of success is just showing up, because the majority of people don't show up. They quit, they come in late, they leave early, they're not attentive when they're at work, they don't care. So if you can just be, for me, people who have disabilities, they are really trying hard. Now, unfortunately, the honest part is, you have to make sure that the job doesn't get impacted by disability. So I'll give you an example. I hired a guy who was losing his eyesight, and he really struggled with the job because it required him to look at the computer screen all day long. And it really, he couldn't see the screen real well. And it really took him a long time because he had to use a magnifying glass to look at the screen and decipher things. So sometimes the job doesn't always match up with the disability, that's involved. And I would go the same thing for me with my dyslexia. The last thing that you want me doing is reading contracts or, getting into details on something, because I have a hard time reading and memorizing those type of things. So now and I think as an employer, everyone thinks that business owners and CEO of companies, you think that we don't have hearts, like it's just business. And it's really not true. It's like, the hardest decision a business owner ever makes is having to let people go. I don't care who it is. All my friends who are business owners, we all talk about how hard it is. It's the last resort after all else fails. And so I think, giving someone an opportunity if they're disabled, it just, I think it just makes everybody feel like it's a company that they like working for, including the owner. So, I think everybody's looking to help everybody out that's out there.
Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. And I'm curious to ask you, Stephen, if there was one lesson you've learned in your business life that you've applied to your personal life, and then secondly, if you could go back 10 years ago and tell yourself something now that you wish you would have told yourself then, what would that be?
Well, I mean, it's tough to separate what I've learned in my business life and my personal life and say, well, what in business have I applied to my personal life and vice versa. They're kind of intertwined, to be to be quite honest with you. Um, I you know I think the one thing in business that I've learned over a period of time is, a lesson that I've tried to that it has been so important is take longer time uh, figuring out what type of business I want to start. Really evaluate it, make sure that the margins are there. There's a variety of factors there. So I'm a real go-getter. So like once I get my sights on something, I just go. And what I've learned in business is not to be that aggressive when it comes to starting a company, to be more thoughtful. And I think in my personal life, I've done the same thing. And that is, before I jump into doing something, I really make sure it's something that I think is going to make me happy. Um, so like an example was when I, I quit police and I got into competitive rowing. I kind of talked to a couple people about that before I kind of jumped into it. And you can always quit, so it's no big deal with that. But I think the one thing I've learned that from business that's carried over my personal life is to be a little bit more thoughtful, not just jump. And then your last question. Yeah. So keep in mind, I've been an entrepreneur for 25 years. So 10 years ago isn't so long ago. But if you were to say 25 years ago, I'll reiterate, and that is pick a better business to be in. Because I remember the first, one or two businesses I pick, boy, they were rough. As persistent as I am, I mean, I've done well. I've built 6 companies in the $5 million to $25 million range. But the first one, at least the first one, was challenging. It was in the printing business, and that's a rough business. But I would also say that one of the things that I would say to myself is, you think you learn everything. You think you're the same person, or you know everything about when you're 30, about when you were 20, and when you're 40, about when you're 30, and you're just always growing and learning and changing. And I think one of the things that I really have learned is try to pick a business. Like I would remind myself, pick a business in something that is a gift that you are already good at. So an example is, because of my disability of dyslexia, I don't read very well. And by the way, I still read a lot, but I don't read very well. But I have a photographic memory with visual images. And so I can take any type of building. One of the businesses I have is a large commercial building and I can take any type of building, and in my head, like a CAD drawing, see every single inch of that building from the inside out just by walking through it once. And so an example of how to use that skill set is to potentially go into a business where renovating buildings or like a developer, because it's a natural gift that I have. So what I would have said to myself is, hey, what natural skills do you have, and how can you turn that into a business?
Yeah, and Stephen, I'm also wondering, for you, what's been the most gratifying part about living life, and how would you want your personal or professional legacy to be defined?
Well, again, it comes back to the idea that I've been able to live my dream for 25 years, and I think that will continue until I die. I won't have to work for anybody. The great thing about my work is I have the freedom to do what I want, which honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs start off saying that's what they want, but they never use that time wisely. I do. I go rowing in the morning. I play tennis I do other things, see my kids' piano recitals and do all the other stuff without having to ask. I have my own life. And then to answer to your second question, I don't believe in legacy. I think anybody who says build a legacy for your business, I'm a Buddhist, so I don't know yet if I follow the Buddhist tradition of reincarnation yet, but I don't believe in an afterlife as far as, from Catholicism standpoint. So I'm dead. What do I care about what happens to my business at that point? I'm dead. And I don't care what the people think after I left because I'm dead. But what I do care about is the legacy that I leave in my children about being a good dad. That I have two sons, and the thing that I want them to do is, like, I've raised my two sons with my wife to be men who understand what makes them happy, and then are always striving for that, for their goals and happiness. And so what I want them to do, and they know this, I want them to be the best fathers they can be if they're fathers. And I want them to put their own twist on being a father. So, they'll learn from me just like I learned from my parents how to be a parent. And then they'll put their own spin and their own effort into it. But that's the legacy I want. I want to be known by my kids as the best dad they possibly could have had.
Well, that's certainly something to aspire to, for sure. And I tell people, for me, I live my life by a model, something I call inclusion is the gateway to independence. So my legacy in life is always trying to build bridges of inclusion. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way, honestly. I don't know, honestly, I don't think I see people that way. I don't see, oh, she's a woman, or, oh, he's a black man, or, oh, he's, I don't know. I just don't see people that way. I see us as all human beings, and we're all connected. And the excitement in life is our diversity. And, I love New York City. I love going to New York and seeing so many different people. And then but then I'll go out to a part of the country where it's all, just one type of person. And I'm like, this is boring, and it's not life. And so, and I've always been that way. So I agree with you, Kevin. I think, that's everybody. I think it's been the trend going on for a while now of inclusivity.
Absolutely. And finally, Stephen, my final question for you is, if people want to get connected with you, Stephen, what's the best way they can accomplish that goal?
Well, I'm always happy to share, to listen and to share my experiences, and to help people. So I'm happy to give you advice. I don't like giving advice unless it's based on my own experiences, because everyone's experiences are different. But so they can reach out to me. They can call me at 973-917-2019. They can go to my website, which is financingsolutionsnow.com. If they want a line of credit for their business or nonprofit, it's financingsolutionsnow.com. And I know, Kevin, you're calling in from Canada, or your Zoom's from Canada. We don't work in Canada, unfortunately. We only work in the United States. And then also my email address is, my personal email address is halasniks@gmail.com. It's HALASNIKS, as in Steve, at gmail.com. And then lastly, I tweet every day on Twitter about business. And I think it's really good, that the stuff that I put out there. And my Twitter handle is at @Halasnik, so SHALASNIK.
Fabulous, Stephen. I really want to thank you for an in-depth discussion about the power and evolution of entrepreneurship. Your time, energy, and efforts on my behalf are most appreciated, and I want to thank you for joining me today.
Kevin, thanks for inviting me.